SmashFactor.
Ripping driver, going for it. Oh my goodness. How about that tee shot?
That is crazy how far that is.
Wow. John Daly, take a back seat, big fella. How about that drive?
That's an aggressive line. Man, that is beyond long.
Look at this, he's just driven the green. He has just driven the green.
I guess hello world, huh?
Welcome everybody to episode 78, a special episode because that was my football number I played with my whole career, so I love that number. Episode 78, the Wyndham Championship of the SmashFactor, coming to you live from a very, very hot and humid San Antonio, Texas. I am rocking solo tonight. Get to that in a moment, but excited for this week. Obviously, I think most of you guys saw that kind of luck box into winning the HV3 Foundation Grand Prize giveaway. And I'll be heading out tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to the Wyndham Championship live with JB. He's flying in from Maine. So we'll get there about noon. We're going to play a little afternoon golf. And then Wednesday morning, we start the festivities. And I'll be on site all Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then fly out of there Friday night. So we'll have lots of periscopes, live feeds, cut-ins, updates. E9 is probably going to be a must-see. Kind of try to see as many guys as I can Wednesday. I don't really know the full schedule as far as being around HV3. I know we're going to tour the Callaway trailer and hang out with him a little bit, follow him for a few holes. I'm sure the Pro-Am will be going on, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be fun, exciting, looking forward to it. Going to be a great time all the way around. Obviously, I'm solo tonight because of a tragedy that most of you guys saw Buck's post last week. Thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. We're thinking about you, Bucks. You know that. The whole family's behind you, not only ours, but Gup's Corner community. Going early tonight so we can kind of get packed and out of here. So I couldn't find a co-host. Tambo has his pod with Kenny Kim, and he's 2 hours earlier than me, so I knew he couldn't make it, and kind of struck out with a couple other guys I wanted to try to get on just because it was last minute. But I'll try to do my best as always. We'll get into the show's sponsor and affiliates. Download Thrive Fantasy app, use the promo code GUP, and receive $10 free with your first deposit of $20 or more. Deposit bonus is limited time, so get the money while you can. NFL is right around the corner. PGA is live now. They've got great contests for PGA that they started a few weeks ago. Check it out if you haven't. NFL is going to be exciting. I don't know if they're doing college football. I'll find that out before we start the football pods, which I think we're going to start rolling them out next week. But that'll be kind of a bread and butter point for us because we dive so heavy into player props already, and we bet. And so I'm interested to kind of see how their football platform looks, and hopefully it's another kind of different spin on fantasy sports all the way around. So, you know, I'm excited to support those guys. Fanshare Sports, use the code GUP, get 20% off the Pro Advantage. You know, golf's winding down, but they got football covered as well. Ownership, new content, new website, always improving. Those guys are great guys. You know, visit with them quite a bit. I got a meeting with them this week, hopefully, and see what they got new coming out for NFL as well. And I'll pass that along next week. But give those guys a try out for, you know, a week, month, or annual. And as always, use the tools we use, fantasynational.com/GUP, or click on the link on the affiliates page. And you can all these affiliates, you can go to the affiliates page and get your rec links if you don't want to write all this stuff down. Get 20% off your next subscription. It's a great time to do it now, especially if you're doing the annual. You can do it anytime, as we saw with the PGA schedule out today for the 1920 season. I think there's like 6 or 7 or 8 weeks that there's not golf on for the entire year. So, you know, there's really, the off season is kind of getting shorter and shorter. Obviously there's fall swing and over Christmas break and stuff, but if you get the month right now, it gets you all the way through the playoffs, the FedEx playoffs and stuff. So it's still a good offer to go through Fantasy National, test it out for a month, these last crucial tournaments. The other big news with the PGA partnering with DraftKings, the official game of the PGA, I think we will increasingly see better contests, more coverage, more awareness to this industry that we're in, that we're trying to grow. Obviously, Pat Mayo has been affiliated with DK, and he had a little clip on the PGA feed last week that was really cool to see. You know, with that, I think, and we're already seeing with the contest this week, which I'll get into in a little bit, how it seems like it's already, I don't know if that had anything to do with PGA. It could just be coincidence, but these next 3 weeks, they got some pretty good contests this week. They've already rolled out the BMW reserves on a few contests, which is, you know, they're kind of treating it like a major almost. So, you know, I think the sport's only growing. Really anxious to see how they treat the quote unquote fall swing. You know, there's been rumors that some of these big boys are going to play more in the fall to spread their schedule out because they don't want to have to try to jam it all in like they did this year, but they want to get their FedEx points and their standings and all that kind of stuff, especially with the Olympics coming next year. So you may see more big names playing in the fall, you know, maybe not all, but a couple tournaments here or there, just so they can spread out their spring and summer schedules a little more with such a compact schedule, which is even a little more compact next year because of, like I said, the Olympics. As always, rate and review us on iTunes, Instagram, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, Twitch. Doing all that helps us tremendously, especially rate and review us on iTunes. They're rolling out a new podcast category, biggest update they've ever had since coming out with it. Fantasy sports will now have its own category starting August 1st. That's exciting because today it just kind of gets jumbled up all into sports. So the big guys at ESPN and all those guys that don't really, some talk fantasy or some don't, but all of our categories and highlights and everything are all mixed into one big category, and it's hard to kind of see how we rank out. You know, we've been in the top 150 a few times during major weeks. Obviously, Mayo's been up there, Kenny Kim and Tambo's been up there. So having that category of fantasy sports as a separate category inside of the global sports will be kind of awesome to see. So rate and review us now. We're going to give away our big preseason NFL podcast / college football. We'll be giving away entries to the Super 7, Survivor, and the GCFF leagues. If you don't know what that is or haven't seen it, we should be rolling those out this week, probably later in the week now that JB's coming with me. But for sure by next week, all those will be up for sign up and all the questions will be on there that you need answered. I've already been reached out a bunch, but just be a little patient with us. Kind of got behind with some of the stuff we've been dealing with behind the scenes. But I will promise you every episode that we record, I will pick someone that has rated and reviewed us on iTunes. So that is the best way to get a free contest entry. Smashing the like button subscribing on YouTube and liking these videos is another great way. That really goes a long way for us. A few offers. One I'll tell you now, the other one we'll get to at the end of the day. This week only, use the code HV3 and get 25% off any t-shirt order that you have. So US Open shirt, the Master shirt, all are 25% off all week. We have less than 100 of both left. So very few, 40, 50 of each or so. We started out with close to 1,000, so they've gone well. We will have a new shirt out for the kind of football-ish type time frame. Actually, we're going to do a shirt and hat combo, kind of I don't want to say generic, a normal, like just classic Gups Corner shirt. It won't be tied to an event or anything, but we're going to do a brand new shirt and hat combo. That'll be coming out in the next 4 to 6 weeks, probably 4 weeks, hopefully. Stand by for that. But we want to get these shirts kind of out of here. So 25% off all week long. Obviously, be patient with JB as he will be with me till Saturday. And then he will ship those out immediately. We normally turn the shipping in less than a day. You can ask anybody or see on the site. And then I have a special offer from Gups Corner and another kind of special thing we're doing this week at the end of the pod. Stay tuned for that. I will do my very best to do a course preview. As you all know, I am nowhere near as good as Mr. Bucks, but I will, obviously, if you're a member, I would get on the website, read it. That's the first thing I do every week. We are going to be in Greensboro, North Carolina at Sedgefield Country Club, par 70, 7,127 yards. Bermuda grass, rough. I don't know if it's going to be real tall. Obviously, we'll give some live coverage tomorrow and Wednesday, but it'll probably be thick. This time of the year, you got some rain, a lot of humidity, a lot of heat over there in this, in that area of the U.S. and some thick rough. So even if it's not tall, it's going to be thick, and you got to be able to get out of it. Greens are about average. Interesting note from Bucks, and I think probably most people know, is the further down the fairway you go, the wider the green or the wider the fairways get. And so a lot of guys club down or try to position themselves off the tee for the best attack to the pins. Bucks goes into great, explanation of that on the article. Green speeds will be around 12 and a half, above average fast. Average winning score, minus 18 to minus 20. Average cut about minus 2. Like, I think the last 3 years it's been minus 2 on the money. A little clip from Bucks. This is quoting him directly, and then the rest of it you guys can go check out on the site. As I said, Sedgefield was designed by Donald Ross and opened in 1926. Since then, it has gone through little changes except for adapting to the modern game. Some length was added, and bunker complexes added off the tee to keep the longer players honest. But overall, much of the original design theory stays in play. Ross is known for his visual setup off the tee, meaning his sight lines promote players to certain areas of the course. If player wants to become more aggressive, they can be rewarded, but visually, it'll be much more demanding shot. He also wants to test the player's ability to work the ball both directions, as we see dog legs left, right, and his switchbacks or mini double dog legs. Again, demanding visually to test the player's ball striking. Lastly, Ross is known for his undulating bunker complexes, and Sedgefield is no different. While Sedgefield has average size greens by tour standards, most greens slope back to front and have undulation that funnel the balls into certain complexes of the green. Also, this course was originally designed in 1926. We see a lot of false fronts and runoffs around the green. So, in-depth, hole-by-hole type stuff is on the site. That's the best kind of point I can make. Weather this week, it's hot. I think high tomorrow is like 91. It looks like most of the week there's a 30 to 40% chance of rain in the afternoon. These are normal this time of year, hit and miss showers, nothing that's going to be just crazy to cause any kind of wave advantage or, issue for the guys as of now. We'll be on site. So if things become more where we need to look at some wave advantages, I certainly will mention that. If not tomorrow, definitely in the E9. This week, key stats for me, probably going to be pretty similar around the industry, but approach is probably the number one. Off the tee, ball striking, birdies are better gained, or DK scoring, however you want to analyze scoring. Everybody kind of does it a little bit different. I think strokes gained par 5 is going to be important, although both of them are very susceptible to birdies, 60% or better rate, I think. A lot of them give up eagles as well. So you could even look at eagles are better, or eagles gained if you depend on what system you're using, or just look at par 5 scoring in general and use it as a little bit of a, because if a guy just doesn't score well on par 5s, he's really going to fall back to the field here. I don't see any way this thing isn't at least 17, 18 under for the winner, if not a little lower. Could even get in the low 20s with some of the guys that are here this week. Some guys playing for the first time ever. I'm going to go a little more in depth on contest selection because I get a lot of questions lately, and we're trying to keep up with all of them. Been a crazy last month, but being on my own, I know everything will kind of go quicker. I thought I could spend a little time in this, so I did a little more research. The player field is about 153 guys, plus or minus. T70 and ties this week, and the MDF is in effect. So if 79 or more players make the cut, they will do a secondary cut Saturday, which we learned, I think, 2 weeks ago. I was obviously out last week. that goes away next year, and it's T65 and ties moving forward, and there will be no more MDF, which I honestly like because I hate having to do the double sweats on Saturday. Last year, 590 points was around the average when you looked at the 2 GC Cup contests. This puts an $11,200 player needing to get 132 points to return quote unquote value. I see it being that high or maybe even a little higher this year. So I would lean it back to, you're going to need guys scoring. Finishing position is going to matter, obviously, but I think scoring is going to be bigger. I mean, you got to have a guy finish 30th. Ironically, I have a little deal later on HV3 that he had one of the most, he almost, I don't know if he led the field, but he was up there. He had like 19 birdies last year. And Webb, who won it, had like 15, but Webb had 2 eagles also. HV3 just had a lot of bogeys, but he made the cut. I think he finished T53, but scoring-wise, I think he was top 30 or so. I'd have to go back to check all that. But that's just when you have a lot of birds and eagles out there, that's where the finishing position doesn't matter as strongly when you look at your whole six-man team. Personally, I got smoked last week. But not like the week before. The week before, I just was dead to work rides pretty much the whole week. I was doing really, really well. Definitely Friday night. Saturday, I'd climbed as high as like 25th in the $44. And the back 9 Saturday, rolling into Sunday, my team just fell apart. I mean, they just went to sleep. Not only that team, but my core that I had going. And obviously, everybody saw last week I went DJ over Brooks. Not the smartest move, hindsight, but if I make that one switch, I probably do well, but it is what it is. Betting was okay. Finished, it was really good. Started out Thursday, I swept the 3 balls, finished up over 10 units. Had a good, decent Friday, decent Saturday, but Sunday I got swept. And the full tournaments wound up getting swept because of some of those guys falling back, like I mentioned on DraftKings. So we did make profit all in on betting, finished up a little over a unit, but I lost, got murdered in DraftKings. Sunday was just a bloodbath for me. So looking to bounce back, I've had a tough 3 weeks, obviously the worst 3-week stretch I can remember. So just got to trust the process and keep rolling. As I say every Wednesday night, golf is hard. DFS golf is blank hard. Interesting thing this week is the contest. I was kind of surprised. I don't quite remember how last year was, but you got 100K up top in the 44, 100K up top in the 55 or 555, 50K up top in the 2120, 100K in the $6. You're gonna have some qualifiers for that 888 that they're running for the BMW, which looks like a really nice pot. I think the BMW is going to be very close to a major type setup, as I said earlier, as far as DraftKings goes. I think these next 3 weeks, we're going to have some pretty good pots, which I'm excited about, obviously, maybe even 4 weeks. This one, no, 3 weeks, because I don't think after the BMW, because the field gets so small, they'll probably run stuff, but it won't be as big, being a limited field. It'll kind of be like last week. I think there's 1, maybe 2 Fantasy Golf World Championship qualifiers left this week to get in. I assume it's because either one didn't fill or they had a tie, and so it still rolled over. I'm not sure, but I did see at least one when I was scrolling through the contest. Going to go a little strategy here, and this is just general. Call this a freebie on me because this is normally information I'd like to keep, to the community, but having so many people ask about it, I think it's fair to kind of roll through just one scenario this week and see how it goes. So I'm a big believer in being as level as I can in most MME big fields, 1,000 entries or more, meaning there's more than 1,000 total entries in there, not really necessarily people because they can max whatever. I've had someone ask, what's the difference between MME and GPP? I think a lot of the industry uses the term GPP, meaning MME, but GPP, a guarantee, like, the 2120 is a GPP because it's a guaranteed prize pool. So the pool's guaranteed, but there's not that many people in it. So it's not really, MME is, meaning you're going to mass multi-enter. So it stands for that normally goes for 150 max, 20 max, stuff like that. So my personal strategy of like, if there's less than 1,000 people or 1,000 entries in the field, i.e. the 333 this week has 170 total entries. It's a 3 max. I would prefer to max it, but that's one where I'm like, I can probably get away with one bullet in there if I want to. There's only 170 total. I'm not going up against someone that can like 10x me in leverage, meaning he puts in 30 and I put in 3. Like, you can't, the most someone can do is be have 3 into my 1, and it's only 170 total entries. So that's kind of how I work backwards on that. But take like the $100 33 max. It's got 1,111 total entries. Personally, if I was going to do it, I would want to max if I could, but that's one with the total entries. And I would kind of look at, I think if I did a third of the max, so maybe 10 or 11, I feel I would be equal to majority of the field. Yeah, there's going to be guys maxing it, but not as much being the $100 buy-in. So I'm okay not going all the way. And it's right around that 1,000 mark that I talked about. Now let's go to the $44 max. There's 150 max entries. There's 10,600 total. Here's where it takes a little bit of history and a little bit of watching and observing for a while and looking at data that historically I will go off of how many people max that on normal. Meaning if there's 5 or 10 guys that max it, I kind of have those in a group. And then what is the average entries per user? So if I have, let's say there's 10,600 entries, but there's, 600, there's probably, let's say there's 4,000 actual users in it, most putting in 2 or 3 lineups or whatever. I'll kind of get the data for that or any other bigger contest that I'm talking about and see, okay, the average user has 10 lineups in this thing, but there's 30 guys that max it. And I'll kind of just break it down, do a little bit of numbers on my own end and go, okay, I feel with my personal experience and skill set that I can do 25 or 30 in this $44 contest and be level or average to the field as far as plus EV type deal. And that's a personal assessment based on my performance in there, what I've done, and then looking at my competition to see what they've also put in. So let's move to the $5, big $5, 142,000 entries, again, $150 max. If I was doing MME for the week, let's say I put in 30 in the 44. Me personally, I'd put that same 30 in the $5, although I don't judge it as a solid move. But in case I, hit the nuts with one of those 30, it's $150. And since I've already invested so much in the 44, it's worth it to do because I don't want to hit it and not have had it in the $5. So it's kind of like a FOMO deal. But if I was just doing the $5 for the week, say that's my budget, I'm going to put it in, doing the history that I've looked at in a normal event, so not a major, this size, I would want at least 50, but probably 75 lineups to feel like I'm compared to the field, because I think most, whether you call it sharps or people that have money, whatever you want to call it, I don't really classify them. A lot more guys will put 100 to 150 in a $5 than they will put 100 in a $44, simply because when you look at the pay scale of the contest winnings, if you put 100 in the 44, that's over $4,000. Well, go look at the payout structure and kind of look at where you have to finish to even break even. So it's a all in to try to get that top. Whereas if I put 100 in the $5, yeah, I got $500 in. If I can just get 5 of those lineups kind of up there in the running, most weeks, maybe I lose half my investment on an average week, but I've only lost $250. Whereas in a 44, I may lose $2,500. So it's really a bankroll. When we talk about bankroll strategy, and we go into this real deep on the website and the podcast and the Slack, and we're going to upgrade and do some new ones here coming, especially with football coming, which is just some massive entries. That's where it takes the time to work through what you're playing for the week, and you really want to try to make your investment pay off. All that being said, you have to know that it's still golf. Like, you're still not going to be, you're going to be wrong more times than you're right. And you have to have that bankroll management over 5 or 6 weeks to make it work out, and then lastly, like some of those lower dollar, $1, $2, $3, 20 max entries, I personally would want to max them if I was down in that range. But I would say, looking at kind of some of the history I did today, I'd want at least half that. If I'm a guy that's my bankroll, that's where I'm at this week. I'd want 10 if I'm playing the dollar or 3. I wouldn't want to put 3 or 4 in those personally. That's just my advice. Kind of the final thing before we get into the tournament this week, bankroll regimen. I get asked a lot, what contest would I enter with X amount of bankroll? This is so tough because there are so many factors that go into it. But I just pulled this out just for an example. If I was going to start out playing with a smaller bankroll, let's say $100 or less a week, I would try to play in contests where I can max them, and I would focus on contests with lower number of total entries, i.e. the $8 5 max this week. It's a good way to build your skill set on narrowing your player pool down, trying to learn the combination and mixes of a 3 max, 5 max type deal. And the odds of hitting that are a lot better than throwing 10 lineups in the $5 this week. That's 142,000 entries. You're just tossing darts and praying. That's me though. It's just my personal deal. So this week, if someone said, Gup, you can only play $100, I personally went through and I said I would have played the $8 5 max. Obviously, the $15 3 max Pat Mayo experience, DK rake free. If you don't know much about that, go listen to Pat's pod. They have the link directly in there. The audio pod has it, not the YouTube, because obviously YouTube kind of banned that from us, but the audio pod does have it. Check it out. It's 3 max, $15, no rake. So all pods paid out. It's awesome. And then the $5 3 max. Those would be my contests for the week. So I'd be in the $8 5 max, that's $40. The $15 3 max, that's Mayo's, that's $45. And then the $5 3 max, that's $15. So I got $100 in. Now, have I eliminated myself from having a 100K week or a 50K week? Yeah, there's no way. You can't even do it, even if you win all 3 of them. But I think I've given myself equal to every field. So I have as many entries as everybody else. So my mindset as I do this for 4 or 5, 6 weeks, I can start to see where I can gain leverage on where people make mistakes in building lineups. I can take advantage of that and mix my combinations up and teach myself. That's how I did it 2 years ago when I was learning this whole process. And then personally, just going through this for a year and a half, I noticed that my weekly return ROI was better in those. Not great, but I cashed more often. I was continuously building and building and building until I had my first kind of big hit. I can't remember what I was in, but it was like $3,000 up front. And I won it. And it was the first GPP I ever won. I mean, and then now it's Katie bar the door. Let's go. I got a bigger bankroll. I'm not going to get crazy with it, but now I take the next step up, and I may pay the $20 3 max or a $50 2 max or $100 single. Give that stair step your way up. It's the only way you're going to last in DFS golf. If you try to just come in this week, put $500 in and go all in and hope you hit, good luck to you, because more times than not, it's not going to work. I know that was off kind of the normal schedule, but being by myself, it's been asked a lot, and I hope it was useful and insightful. I love feedback. So, obviously email me or DM me. I want to try to get that things out to everybody. And I'd rather spend time on that than recapping for 20 minutes of all the crap that happened last week, because it's already kind of been hashed out over and over. With that, let's get into the Dirty Dozen. It's just me this week, so gonna be a one-man show, but if you're new, we do 3 picks, 9K and above, 3 picks, 7,600 to 8,900, 3 picks, 7,500 or less. And then the last tier is a flop, a fade, and a sleeper. Flop is any price that we don't think will return value. Back to that value point I set up at the top. So I've mathematically assigned the total points I think it's going to take to win said contest, and I divide in and get the thing, and I say, okay, a guy at this price needs this points historically in a week like this, and I don't think he's going to return the value. A fade is just for whatever reason. Ownership, don't like him. He beats up the course, bunkers, and tee boxes, whatever. There's no particular reason. It's just what it is. And then a sleeper is anybody $6,900 or less. 9K and above, our first tier. Man, it's real interesting because I think a lot of guys, I'm really interested to kind of hear the industry. I did get to sneak in the Mayo show earlier. I normally don't, but I had a little free time this afternoon, so I put it on while I was working in the office. But nothing there. I mean, they're more about betting and everything. But other than that, I don't listen to anything really until Tuesdays. I was trying to get ahead this week because I know I'm going to be traveling tomorrow and whatnot. I think Webb could just be. I think he was number one last week. Now he's at the course where I think he named his daughter Wyndham. Literally, I mean, he absolutely loves this place. Coming off a second, a 30th, great form, great course history, great. There's nothing bad about Webb. That is simply, I think you're going to have to make one move or the other. You're either going to have to just be like all in and above or complete fade. I don't think there's a middle ground with him this week. Being the highest owned, that's the only thing that'll kind of keep the builds interesting to see. But there's some good value down the sixes that I like. We'll get into that in a second. So I think it's doable. Because of that, I think Matsu is going to go under the radar a little bit. Didn't look sharp last week. Missed the cut at the Open. Tee to green, we know he's great. But he does have a tendency to not hit fairways. So, but he has a T11 here, a T30. Then he missed 2 cuts earlier in his career. So he's interesting to me. But my 3 is going to be Morikawa, Hovland, and Neiman. Morikawa coming off the win. Obviously, a great win for him. Had him in a double with Rahm, but Rahm couldn't pull through. Several guys in the industry had him with Brooks. So that's congrats to those. I know Baroff and Adon did, so congrats to those guys. This dude's number 1 in my rankings overall. Limited size, right? So you take it for what you will, but his last 3 tournaments was a T2, a T4, and a win. He just got done playing college. So, I mean, he's just on a heater, right? So I don't know how you deny it, but maybe people zig and I'll zag type of deal. I'm on him. Hovland, so his strength is kind of that stuff. He's going to put the ball in the fairway. He's not as powerful as Wolf or maybe even Morikawa. A little bit more size from him because he played a little bit, but his last 3, T13, T13, T16. The kid, I think he's, it's kind of turning. He's the only one that hasn't won yet out of those 2 with Wolf. So he's right there. I like him. 9,500, big discount from Morikawa if you want to. So it's one reason I like Morikawa. Morikawa kind of starts to be chalky. I may not go that route, but basing where this pricing is, I think most people may drop and just say, well, I'll just play Hovland because he hasn't won yet. And then Neiman's Neiman, right? I don't have to explain that. I get to see him live. I was telling JB before the pod, this is like the Guptill Open. This is like reunion show of last summer, the big winning streak. Got HV3, Burgoon, Dahmen, Armour. Going to talk about Armour in a second. They're all here. This is if I don't win this week live on site, something's wrong. But love Neiman. He's going to put the ball in play. I'll check him out a little bit Wednesday. As long as he's striping the ball well, I think his putting's improved this year, and I think we can say it has. I don't think it was a lucky streak because he continuously kept putting pretty good for him. So at 9,100, I like him. Second tier, 7,600 to 8,900. I'm gonna go back to Bucks's boy, Jason Kokrak. Hadn't played as much after he kind of had the hot streak. He did get a T32 at the Open, T29 at the RMC. He's played here the last 4 years. Okay history. He had a withdrawal. That'll be something I have starred to go see what happened that year. He missed the cut. And then the last 2 years, T16, T57. I still think he's playing some of the best golf. We saw the miscut he had, several weeks ago, and it was 100% because of putting, right? the dude couldn't putt from 3 foot. So we always know that's the ultimate, volatile of the game. So I'm going to take 8,000. Seems like a pretty good price in this field. I like him betting wise too. He's on my short list there. I may play him betting. Piercy, same way. This guy was kind of hot fire for a while. T15 at the 3M Open. He's played this every other year, the last 5 years, made the cut all 3 times, has a T12 in there. 8 overall in my model. Nothing bad with him. So 8,100, again, if you're kind of going down that balance type build, I like Piercy. There's going to be some chalk in this area. We'll talk about that. This may be good spots. So maybe Piercy could be in there and Kokrak could as well, but those are guys I like, early Monday. Hadwin, and I have another one, but I'll get to him in the round table. This is really close for my third one. I like Hadwin. Pretty good history here. a fourth and a T57. Great ball, great off the tee most of the time, puts it in play. He's third birdie or better in my model, sixth on par 5 scoring. So in this field, so I just kind of like where he's at. I 8,500 seems pretty good. I really think Glover is going to get talked up quite a bit. And so this is kind of maybe a pivot. We'll see how that shakes out. Glover's last 3 trips out here, a T18, a T22, a T28. His last 3 out on tour, recent form, T7, T10, T20. So he's got everything rolling the right way. And I don't mind Glover at all. I feel like he can become chalky, and I may go off of a chalky Glover. But he's on the other list. But my official 3 is Kokrak, Piercy, and Hadwin. 7,500 or less. Berger's the first one. Pretty solid all the way around. He doesn't have the best history here. So he's one I've marked to kind of deep dive and see how was his form coming in. He's only played it twice in the last 5 years. So small sample size, but he has struggled here. And I think a lot of that may be off the tee. I think he's hitting the ball better right now. He's got a T15 at the 3M and a T33 at the John Deere Classic. Shows well in all the categories except for the par 5 part, but we know he can get it there. So that's not something I'm like too crazy about. Course history just kind of keeps him way down, but he's only 7,400. So that's the point of I can take a chance on a guy like that at 7,400. And if he was 8,400, maybe a little different. Bryce Garnett, love Bryce this week. Always worried about his putter, but at 7,100, he's played this 4 of the last 5 years. He missed a cut in 15, but then he's had a T32, a T20, and a T20. He played the Rocket Mortgage Classic, the 3M, the John Deere, and the Barbasol, and he's got a T17, T23, T37, and T18. So 4 straight made cuts, striking the ball well, coming in great form. I like him. He's on the short list at betting at 100 to 1 or so. And my last one in this range is McCarthy. Denny McCarthy, 7,400. Played here last year, had a T36. Can score, great at birdies. Par 5, he can score in this field. He ranks top 10 in both those. Last 4 events, he missed at the John Deere. The other 3, he was T23 or better. So, a top, for 7,400, he's definitely on my short list. He could catch some steam in the market, so I'll keep an eye on that. But other than that, I certainly have no issues with him at all right now at 7,400, right there with Berger. It's got some, but he does putt well on Bermuda. He's one of my better splits when I look at Bermuda versus non-Bermuda. So I like that as well for McCarthy. We'll be in on him this week. Irons can get a little shaky, but when you're down this price range, especially this pretty good field, but there is some little bit weaker down than normal at the bottom. Some guys taking a week off before the big FedEx push, if they've already hit their mark or feel like they're comfortable getting in, which I'm gonna have some of that in the content this week, talking about who's on the bubble, who's not. I generally don't let that sway me because it's not like guys are going to be here and they're not trying to do well. So I don't think just because they have to get inside one number, it's so hard for them to calculate what everybody else does that I think they're just going to go out and go, hey, I got to play well. And so I don't put a lot into where they're at in the FedEx Cup, but it's meaningful and worth looking at. 4th tier, final tier. My flop this week's going to be Ches Reavie. I predict he's going to be somewhat popular. He has a T37 here and 2 missed cuts also in the last 5 years. He had 2 missed cuts leading up to last week where he finished T27. Obviously, last week was a no-cut event, but that's still a pretty good finish. I just worry if he can score well enough here. He's not a guy that typically – he can get high, don't get me wrong, but he definitely – at 9,300, he's going to have to score over 100 points and kind of finish top 15-ish, I would assume. And I worry if he has to go low right now. He doesn't rank very well in scoring or par 5 for me. He's number 1, in my secret sauce. But outside of that, he's not very good at all on stats. He's 63, 69, 64, 88, 42, which is just good. It's average. But again, if he's 8,300, he's probably chalk city, but it's just the price part that I think he flops and doesn't return value. Just personal. I'll live with that. My fade this week, assuming he's going to be high owned. If not, I may be different, but I'm going to fade Snedeker, and this may be dumb. And I could switch this and fade Webb. One of those two, depending on super ownership or whatever. I think they're both going to be pretty chalky, and I don't want to play both. I like Webb a lot more than Sneds. Sneds at 10,000. Played well last week, finished strong with a good Sunday, had a miscut at the Open, a T5 at the Rocket. Tremendous course history. Number 3 in the field. Last 4 times out, a 5th, a 43rd, a 3rd, and a win. Obviously won last year, and I think Webb finished 2nd, if I remember right. I think I have that right. So, great coming. Back defending champ, right? So I think he could be pretty popular. Stat wise, he just doesn't do much for me, and so that's kind of where I just decide to plant a flag, right? We talk about that all the time in the Slack, and that's where I'm at this week. My sleeper this week is Sean Stefani, $6,900. I have a few in this range that I like. We'll get into it at the round table, but he's my favorite. He's played it 4 out of the last 5 years, which I like when I'm going down low that a guy has played the course, because you're already taking a chance, right? And recent form is great, especially for a $6,900 guy. T35, T15, T33, T39. I think being able to not have to, bomb it here helps him. So I think he'll be in most of the fairways, give him a good shot at greens. And all we need is him to make a cut and have some birdies in there, make a good run. I really like him at $6,900. So we will not do any fire. I'm not going to rapid fire myself per se, but that was another reason why I kind of did the whole contest breakdown earlier. I knew I had some time to fill in. Kind of round table wrap up for me. A little longer, but I wanted guys to be able to talk about them a little bit more in depth, since we didn't have 2 or 3 guys here with me to kind of cover the field. But Kyle Stanley, right there, love him. He was right on the bubble of being in one of those tiers. He's top 11 in my model. He's hit or miss here. He's had 2 missed cuts, 2 good finishes. Coming in with pretty good form, really good form. T41 at the Open, which is nothing to laugh at, and then a T18 and a T21 before that. So I like Stanley. Paul Casey, 9,800, maybe goes under the radar at the price. I don't know. I didn't put him in because I'm interested to kind of see the ownership sway with him and Reed and Sneds. And there's just a lot there to kind of look at and analyze. So Casey's on my list. Matsu, I mentioned, he's on my list. He hasn't looked as sharp, but normally for some reason that's kind of about the time he shows up in top 5s, right? When no one's on him, he's finally not chalky. I was all on him last week. It hurt me. Him and Cantley didn't perform very well, especially on the weekend. He's great off the tee. He does struggle to hit some fairways. We know the putting was, but he actually putted pretty well last week. Putting wasn't necessarily his issue. He just didn't hit the ball well, which worries me a little bit. Because if the putting isn't there and he's not hitting the ball well, then what happens? We got a bad $10,900 guy, and that makes me nervous for him. But I'm obviously Team Matsu most of the time, going to be there. If he's going to be a 10 to 12% type guy, I doubt it. But if he is, I'll have some in an MME type build, 20 or more type lineups for sure. Webb, I already talked about, kind of went in depth. Reed's a guy I really like. He was on the bubble with Hovland, Morkow, and Neiman. He was probably 3B. I like him a lot this week. I expect him to be uber chalky at 9,700. I think most people will fade off of the young bucks and say they can't keep it up maybe. And if he's not, I love Reed. I like him a lot. I think he's a guy that plays with confidence. And you can tell last week a T12, a T10 before that, a T23, a T5. Like, when he's rolling, I mean, he can score with the best of them and playing well. And I think he wants to build momentum going into the FedEx. He's a guy that, because he hadn't had as great a season overall, he's still done well, don't get me wrong. Like, a win here would set him up for a pretty good run in the FedEx and a run at, having a good shot. So don't count out Reed. Wolf, kind of mentioned him earlier, 9,400. He's in that same, that 9,000 is just, I mean, let's just go through it real. I mean, so here's a 9,000 in order of my rankings. Hovland, Casey, Neiman, Reed, Sabatini, who I'm about to get to. Love Sabatini. Wolf, Cameron Smith played well last week. Horschel, all those guys are in the top 35 in my rankings. And then Reevy, the one fade. So the other, 8, I could play any of those guys and feel good. So I really see the balance builds coming in play, which could leave some good leverage up here in the top, especially for a guy I'll get to in a minute I've been saving. 9,000 is loaded. Really, really like that area. 7 has some good plays. You can really start to build really good lineups going that route. Glover, I kind of mentioned earlier. I like him. Interested to see the ownership, 8,700. Benny on right there as well. I'm going to have to go say hi to him, tell him that Phil says hello. I know that'll make Phil happy. 8,200 feels like a good price for Benny. He struggles sometimes in some of the areas that I worry about this week, especially finding fairways at times. But he's a good player and coming in with pretty decent form. So I don't mind Benny on as a look. Russell Knox gets a look from me. I like him. 7,500. Need to check his FedEx, but I bet he's somewhere in the bubble-ish, or probably needs a good run. Great on the stat area for that price range. Has played it 2 of the last 4 years, a T28 in 2017. Ryan Armour, that's a no-brainer. I mean, everybody knows me, so the freebie bets of the week: Armour and Neiman, I've already bet them. FOMOs, I mean, plus I'm there. Are you kidding me? Got to bet them. $6,900, a T4 and a T8 the last 2 years. He's made 3 of his last 4 cuts, and if you remember before this little run, he had missed some cuts. So I feel like his form's coming in. We all know last summer at this time he had some pretty good form and was doing well. He's going to put the ball in the fairway, right? He's only behind Reevy, I think. I have to go back and look as far as like a fairways gained or off the tee metric. He's not going to be long, but he don't need to be here. So, I mean, this makes him comfortable. He'll be a guy to check out. I talked to his caddy at the Honda this year, so I'll be sure to go over there and say hi to them again. Spawn, Ruby's boy, got to give him some love. Another one, not as long, but he can find the fairways. He can get hot. He only played this once and got a T16, 2 made cuts his last 2 times out. So 7,000 on the nose. I like Spawn. Ortiz, I love 6,500. Real cheap, good cheap player. We've seen him go low. He had a T5 at the 3M with a great Sunday. Missed the cut at the John Deere, but he has played here twice in the last 5 years, so I like that he's got some experience. Made the cut in 16. I like him overall this week. He's 22nd in my model, 6,500. You sprinkle him in and let you get up there to the top. Could be some unique builds, or you can go like 2 9K guys and him, and then you still got pretty balanced lineup left. Super, super deep sleeper, Charlie Danielson, 6,100. He rates out really good in my model, but he's limited exposure, right? I hadn't played it, got a lot of rounds in. Finished top 15 at the 3M. Stat-wise looks good. He's marked, circled X for me to go deep dive into a little bit more of old Charlie. But at 6,100, I mean, if you're doing any kind of 10 lineup or more, I think that's an auto plug-in. Even one lineup, he's not going to be 10%. So one lineup, or you probably put one lineup in 20, which is 5%, and you're probably overweight. So I like Charlie there. Good, cheap, dark horse value. Kind of wraps up the DK slate. Obviously, have you covered toe-to-toe, the next 2 days, and even Thursday and Friday as we're there for showdown and stuff like that. Shoot me or JB DMs, questions, people you want to see something on. We'll try to get as much of it covered as possible, especially Wednesday. I plan on being there probably sun up to sundown as best I can, depending on what schedule they have for us, and get as much coverage of people that you guys want to see. Betting wise, outrights 40-1 or shorter. The only guy I really like is Hovland. And I don't know if I can get there. I've seen him anywhere from 28 to 33. I almost wonder, he's not, sometimes he can start slow or whatever. I almost wonder, can I get a better number live if someone kind of boat races on Thursday and, let's say someone shoots 8 under and he's 2 under, can I get better than 30? Probably. I just feel like because he's a younger guy and not as, so if he falls back a little bit, I can, at some point, I feel I can get that number better. So I may hold off. I hadn't really decided yet, but that's really only one I kind of like in that area. You could go Wolf again at 40. He certainly has a talent to win again. So don't think he can't just because he already won this year. Hovland kind of sticks out because he's almost double what Morikawa is, I love Morikawa. Obviously, you guys have seen me follow him and been on him and played him a lot in his first several tournaments, but I don't know if he's double the value in the market. Maybe, but I like Hovland at that number. The mid-range, 45 to 75. Depending on the price here, this is where you could start. I definitely would each way in this area if you have that option. You could start looking at some top 10 numbers. If you don't have each way, top 20, probably not the best payoff, but Hadwin, Piercy, Neiman, Sabatini, Wolf. I just mentioned him. He's 50. Kokrak, obviously, I think he's 66 live. He was 70. Those guys stick out to me. 80 to 120. Stanley, I mentioned earlier. These are numbers we can slowly start to even look at some top 20 bets. For me, a top 20, I like to at least get 8 to 1 or better, probably 10 to 1. So I'm really looking for the long odds on the top 20. I had a guy last week. It was an honest question, would you take Stinson minus 110 at T20? And I was like, well, it seems like a good bet. I don't remember what he finished. I didn't even go back and really check, but I said, that's not, when I'm making a top 20 bet, it's not, I'd rather bet him in a matchup for minus 110 and just take him beating one guy instead of having to beat, 40 something guys in the field last week. This week, you got to beat, 130 to get in the top 20. So when I'm doing top 20 type bets, I'm looking for 8 to 1 return, 9 to 1, ideally 12 to 1, 16 to 1. Some of those really dark sleeper horse. The week we had Redmond, right? I can't remember what he was, but those kind of guys. So some of these may fall in that, and then definitely the dark horse category. Obviously, I would look at those. But Stanley, Straka, Berger, Spa, McCarthy, those are all 80 to 1 or to 120 that I really like this week. Dark horse, 120 or above. Stefani, Ortiz, Ryder, Armour. I've already bet Armour, told you that. All these guys you should – each way if you can. If you can't, I'd look at top 10, top 20. If you can get top 20 at 10 to 1 or better, I'd probably do those as well. If you're into that, I don't do it a lot, but I guess I had some people ask me to go into more detail on that. And I should say if that's your style, that's probably a good way to go. I have so many things going bankroll wise that long-term wise, I like to just kind of focus on the first round leaders, the betting. I'd like to do some doubles. Every once in a while, I'll throw in a top 20, a top 10 in there on the card. So those guys are all in the area. Stefani, I like a lot. All four of them, actually. I love them. Not sure I'll bet all four, but Armour's already been bet for sure. That rolls us right into the one and done segment, which is now a lot closer than it used to be, as Bucks hit Brooks last week at 1.745 mil. Brings him up to 5.4. I had Xander at 86,000, brings me to 7.39. So in a contest that I was dominating the whole year, we're now separated by 2 million almost on the nose. So 3 weeks, three or 4 weeks left. A lot can happen. Last week, OG picked Lowry and Brooks the last 2 weeks, and he's went from, 100, 200 and something to 30th. OG John, contributor at the Gups Corner, great friend of mine, heading out to Vegas with him. in a few weeks. The weekend, the Super Contest weekend where they had the golf tournament, defending champs. We're going to go out there and defend our championship. I think it's August 24th, 5th, that weekend, whatever that is, we'll be out there. So if you're going to be in Vegas, let us know. Would love to buy you a drink, shoot the shit and have fun. But there's a guy that moved from min cashing ish, halfway ish to now he's got a shot at the big pot, right, in 2 weeks. So there's plenty of time to make moves. My second lineup is actually in 217th place, and Buck's second lineup, not these, is in 233rd place. So we both have shots to make our moves. Long shots to win, but you never know. Buck's pick for the week is Strillman. And my pick of the week, man, this one was tough. This is why I think I do better in my second lineup, because I sink it all in by Wednesday. That's why I have multiple, because we always want to commit to doing one on the show. I mean, I think if you have some of the great guys out there that have already been used a lot, I would use them this week. So Matsu, Simpson, any of those guys that may be high usage, and if they got good win equity, I mean, even Snedeker, if you want to use him there and then just not play him, and I mean, that's certainly a thing to do. I'd play him if you haven't used him already. I was down to 3 or 4 back and forth all day, but I am going to go with Patrick Reed as my one and done for this one. I really think he's motivated, playing great. I think he's been used. I think JB told me about 1,600 times, so about 50% usage. So maybe it gives me a little leverage. If I happen to hit or do really well, the last few weeks, I probably won't talk about who I'm using for obvious reasons. I know our boy Kenny Kim's up there in the hunt too. So we got a lot of guys up there. It's exciting to see. I hope you guys enjoy that. Tons of great football contests coming out as well. We'll have all the details out no later than this Sunday. We'll at least start releasing all the info and details and get signups going or whatnot. So stay patient with us there. As always, join us Wednesday night for the E9 because we'll be there live. Be flexible. Not sure. We'll lock in once we kind of get settled and understand how the flow is going to go and see our agenda. But for right now, it's still 9:00 Eastern. And we host it behind in the paywall on YouTube. We have a private YouTube showing that night. Been great. Everybody's loved it since we moved from the old platform. Live questions, live video. The video does stay up. I think some people didn't realize that. So the link stays up in the same spot. So you can go in there and watch the video whenever you want if you happen to miss the live. So get in there. As I mentioned, join Gup's Corner now. Gets you the rest of the 2018-19 season. Also will get you through most of the preseason NFL content, hype, rankings, projections, season long, rookies, all that stuff that we got rolling out, starting next week. And if you join now, I think the way I did the math right, you would get the first week of college football, the real season. So obviously they don't have preseason, but first week 1. So you get betting plays, our boy Bobby Berger, one of the best in DFS college football around. His write-ups, and he's our lead on college football this year for DFS. So doing a monthly now will get you a lot of content. Obviously, if you want to do the yearly, go ahead and do that. Get you 365 days all the way to this day next year. Best value for us if you want it. There's also a $4.99 weekly option. For the monthly or yearly this week, if you use the code HV3, obviously, give him a little shout out to Harold and a big thank you to him and the foundation. You get, and I'm going to post this on Twitter as well. Give us some like and retweets there. Let's spread the word. We want to make a little money for the HV3 Foundation. So you'll get 15% off if you use that code off of a yearly or monthly package. Plus, I'm going to donate 20% of the proceeds to, 25% of the proceeds of every sign up to the HV3 Foundation. So you guys get a discount, HV3 benefits, win-win situation for his foundation. Big thank you to him for having me out and JB as well. It's going to be a blast. So if you're on the fence, this is a week to kind of join. Virtually, obviously no margin in there for us. We just want to help HV3's foundation give back a little bit, give you guys a little discount for joining. And I'll post it on Twitter as well. So if you got friends, tell them to support, get out there this week. Let's raise a little money. On top of that, I'll be posting this as well. Gups Corner is going to do the Birdie Eagles match to the HV3 Foundation this week. We're going to do $20 for every birdie that Harold gets and $40 for every eagle that he gets the entire tournament. Last year he had 19 birdies, so can get some good money there for Harold's Foundation. I'll post that on Twitter as well. Give us some like and retweet, spread the word. We're all about charities and giving back, and definitely want to support Harold this week with both those motivations right there. So help us out there. With that, I know it's been short, quick. I hope it's been good and entertaining. Miss Bucks, can't wait to have him back next week. I think I actually will be traveling again. I leave tomorrow and I'm out for 8 days between this and another work deal, but I should be on the pod next week with Bucks. If not, I'm sure Tambo can fill in for me, but that is my last travel date for a while. And then we are hot and heavy into football. I can't wait for that. We're going to have tons of fall swing coverage, have a couple of huge announcements coming, related to football season, fall swing, all that kind of stuff, working on a couple things behind the scenes. It's going to be great. We got a good foundation here. Glad you guys are supporting it. Overall, Gups final thoughts for tonight. Let me get a drink, get my throat a little wet. It was a tough week for the Gups Corner family. Can't tell you how much my heart hurts for Bucks and his family. Next week we're going to need prayers for JB and his family. Life's too short. Life's too short to have hate in your life. That goes for me too. I had some folks in my life that I let myself build up hate towards them. And, very few people in this world deserve hate. And even if they do, it's better just to remove said people from your life and just enjoy it, because you never know when it'll come to an end. Life's too short. We hear that all the time. We kind of forget it until it smacks you in the face. Obviously didn't smack me directly, but I've said many times, Bucks is a brother to me. JB's a brother to me. Melinda's a sister to me. Tambo's a brother to me. I mean, these guys are my family. And if you're in the Slack, it's unreal. And how many times the Slack brings me up when I'm frustrated, or, I see people see people attacking me, whatever. That community is great. My stress levels have been down the last few weeks. Thank you, mute button on Twitter. I just don't deal with it no more. If I'm engaging in someone that wants to have an intelligent conversation with me, I'm all good with it, even if they're challenging me. If it starts turning into hatred or negativeness, it's just not worth it, and I just move on. The GC community is such a blessing, so much love and respect that goes on in that Slack. I wish the best to Mr. Feinberg. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he may be, his wife may be in labor right now. So if that is the case, wish him the best for a safe delivery for their second child. Met Jeff a couple of years ago at the Honda and couldn't have a better relationship with at that time a stranger than I do now with Jeff. Love him like a brother as well. Would do anything for him, Mayo, Wiley, any of those guys. Great people. Continued prayers to Bucks, JB. A little special prayer request to our friend Kevin. Saw last night. Just Mr. Gups Corner. He'll have a special place in all of our hearts forever. He's battling ALS. Last night, we gave him our first ever lifetime membership, for free. It's going to last a long time because we know he's going to fight this and last many, many, many years, but he's a great guy. The Slack is 100% behind him. That's what this is all about, for those that I have expressed hatred towards in the past. I apologize for that. And, I kind of wrote this last night, but all I can do is work on a better me. And set an example for my two young boys. And I suggest everyone do something similar. Look in the mirror, make sure you're good with yourself and your family. And if you have kids, the example you're setting. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Some trolls or hate people or whatever, they don't matter. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It doesn't mean we have to agree on all things and everything be, kisses and roses. But if it just gets to that turning that ugly part, let's separate yourself from the situation, move on in life, be mature, be the mature and humble person. I know I'm working on that daily. Something high priority for me to change. I had a defense mechanism of people, hating on me, quote unquote. And I just letting that go now. Reached out to a few guys that used to be kind of friends, expressed that same deal this weekend to them. Don't know if they'll hear this, probably not. They don't listen no more. But, I don't really have that true hatred for anybody. And so there's no reason to get worked up over it. And taking it day by day. I'm working on it. It's definitely not something that happens overnight. But I think if we all can continue to work on that, it'll be a better industry and a better environment, especially for golf. Such a great game. There's just no reason for that. There's no reason to be happy about someone else's failures or anything like that. So, with that, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be live, periscoping. May have a special surprise for you tomorrow night live, working on that. So stay tuned with us as always. Safe travels to JB. I'll see you in the morning, brother. Good night. Hit us up if you have any questions or things you want to see. See you Wednesday.
SmashFactor.